Let's bring in One Nation leader Pauline Hanson, who joins me from Queensland. Good to talk to you again, Pauline. This has just been such a shocking event. It's great that they've got a suspect and the wheels of justice are in motion. The fact that a death penalty is going to be pursued is going to reignite debate, not just in the US, but around the world here. What's your view on the death penalty being pursued here?
I'm all for it. I don't have a problem with it at all. I see that, charges for murder in this country as well, it's just going down. There's no real penalties for the crimes that are committed. And for those heinous crimes like the Daniel Morcombe murder or Shani Kinney, these are people, I believe, you forfeit your lives. We don't have a safe society anymore. How many people are living in fear? And I think that if there was the death penalty for some crimes that are proven that there's no doubt and it was premeditated murder, they've gone out there to take these people's lives, why should the taxpayer be funding these people in prisons for over $100,000 or $150,000 a year? Why are we doing that? I want a safe society. And if you put tough sentences in and say, well, mate, if you want to go out and take the life of someone, well, then be prepared to lose your own. I'm sure a lot of them wouldn't go out there and commit these murders. And don't forget the families, the loved ones. They've lost their loved one for life. I just don't believe they have a right to live.
You mentioned the Shani Kinney murder. That was, for people outside of Queensland, another particularly horrendous child abduction, rape and murder where they got the couple that were responsible for that. They've both since died in prison, I think. But do you think that there is a realistic market, if you like, for want of a better word, for a discussion of the death penalty in this country? That's been and gone, hasn't it?
I think it has, Chris. I think we're past it because we're a signatory to the UN, which won't allow for this to happen. So you're going to have all these people up in arms screaming about it. But I tell you what, Chris, when I was in prison, I was in there with Faye Cram. She was the one who actually was responsible for the murder of Shani Kinney. And I sat opposite her and I just said to her, I said, if you were the one, anyone laid a hand on my daughter, as you have done, I said I'd be the one that actually would pull the trigger.
You spoke directly to the killer. You spoke directly to the killer and you told her that she should die.
Yep. I was in prison with her, with this heart. She just looked at me. She couldn't say anything. I got on all right, with them, and I had to. I was in those circumstances. I couldn't do anything about it. And they threw me in with these murderers and, child abusers and different ones. But I made my point very clear. They knew how I felt about these things. I didn't back away from it, Chris.
Extraordinary. What an extraordinary experience. What a heinous crime. And to come face to face with the woman involved, just extraordinary. I want to go on to the fallout from Charlie Kirk and show you what the independent Senator Fatima Payman has said about it online. Here we go.
So what do I think about Charlie Kirk? And obviously his assassination. I think he was a pretty awful person. And he doesn't deserve all the recognition he's getting. It would have been best to not have him assassinated and for him to remain a footnote in the Trumpian era of the United States. Yeah, Charlie Kirk got shot and he's RIP. Whatever you want RIP to stand for. Some people will say it's not peace, so fill in the blanks, people. Fill in the blanks.
Look, there are some people online saying RIP stands for something else horrendous and insulting. Yeah. I just find that terrible. The only reason she regrets the political assassination of Charlie Kirk is because it's drawn attention to his movement and his arguments. What sort of behaviour is that from a senator in this country?
To me, that's a vile comments that she made, and when I questioned her on the floor of Parliament about her citizenship, she was screaming at me, she was calling me a racist and all these names just because I questioned her ability, or not her ability, that she had the right to be in Parliament due to the Section 44 of the Australian Constitution, and the vile that came out of her mouth then, calling me names.
Senator Hanson, why don't you just look at me when you're saying all these things through the chair? Because it's absolutely outrageous that you're going to come to this place to suspend standing orders when we've got an agenda full of important things that Australians want us to do, and instead of representing your constituents through the chair, Senator Hanson is more caught up in the Section 44. You know what? You've worn the burqa, through the chair. Senator Hanson has worn the burqa in this place. Maybe it's time that she pack her burqa and go to Afghanistan and talk to the Taliban about this. Because clearly, when the Labor Party put me up as a candidate, they did their homework. And here it is. Here's the advice, Senator Hanson. Do you want to see it for yourself? Because no, you're in absolute denial. All that Senator Hanson does in this place is spread hatred, spread division, because that's what you're made to do here. And it's outrageous. It's beyond comprehension. Here, take it. Absolutely just don't understand that we're wasting our time talking about a matter that has no basis. You've had it good for too long, Senator Hanson. Through the chair.
Senator Hanson, is this a point of order?
Yes, it is, because if she's got the documents, I ask her to table those documents.
That's not a point of order. Senator Payman, you have the call.
I am very honoured that I live rent-free in Senator Hanson's mind, but I think you've got better things to do than worry about Section 44 here when there's nothing to see. I mean, the racism and comments and quotes that you've made in the past.
Senator Hanson.
I want to withdrawn that racism. It's not racism. I want it withdrawn.
Senator Payman, I'll just rephrase that, please, and I'd ask you just to withdraw for the benefit of the chamber.
Deputy President, I would like to make a few quotes from Senator Hanson that has previously indicated.
No, Senator Payman, you have to withdraw for the benefit of the chamber, but then you can quote as much as you want.
I will withdraw so I can proceed.
Now proceed.
Thank you. Senator Hanson's quote, I challenge anyone to tell me one thing that I've said that is racist. And here I begin. There's a few. There's so many, we could be here all day. She has said, I believe we're in danger of being swamped by Asians. In her first speech. In 1998 policy speech, she said Aboriginality would no longer exist under her party's policies. In another statement, she says, we're bringing in people from South Africa at the moment. There's a huge amount coming into Australia who have disease. They've got AIDS. If that is not racist, what is it? Oh, it's not racist. Oh, somebody bring the dictionary because Senator Hanson does not know the definition of racism. The fact that you would say just weeks ago to Senator Faruqi, piss off back to Pakistan, you're not just vindictive, mean, nasty, you bring disgrace to the human race. No dignity whatsoever as a senator in this prestigious place where we're supposed to bring unity, where we're supposed to have that freedom of expression, yes, but within boundaries and confinements of respect. I kept on giving you the benefit of the doubt, Senator Hanson, despite your repetitive attempts to be racist to anyone who does not look like you.
Thanks for joining us, Pauline.
With pageantry. And then she goes and behaves this way.
Yeah.
Already tried to clarify after an immediate. Controversial Senator Fatima Payman has posted a highly offensive clip about Charlie Kirk, which she's already tried to clarify after an immediate uproar. Here's what she said.
So what do I think about Charlie Kirk? And obviously his assassination. I think he was a pretty awful person. And he doesn't deserve all the recognition he's getting. You know, it would have been best to not have him assassinated and for him to remain a footnote in the Trumpian era of the United States. Yeah, Charlie Kirk got shot and he's RIP. Whatever you want RIP to stand for. Some people will say it's not peace, so fill in the blanks, people. Fill in the blanks.
It's just disgraceful. Joining me now is my panel, former Liberal Senator Holly Hughes and IPA Senior Fellow Adam Crichton. Now, she's now issued a statement trying to justify her horrible remarks. You know, she says she extends sympathies to Charlie Kirk's young family. She condemns all form of political violence. But Holly, the issue is that it's been 6 days since he was killed. Why is she talking about him? Why is she... I don't even know what she means by RIP, but I can imagine it's something very offensive.
I don't know what the P is. I've actually been trying to think what the P is that she's referring to,
She
other
should
than
be
peace.
above this as a member of Parliament.
This is now the second parliamentarian who's been embroiled from the Australian Parliament in either liking a post or now making a post that is almost condoning the assassination of Charlie Kirk or political violence in any of its form. But what I did note, she said, I was hoping Charlie Kirk would just be a footnote to Trumpian politics. Well, I have no doubt Fatima Payman will be lucky to make a footnote. The only thing she will be probably ever remembered for is ratting on the ALP, because we know how much they embrace that sort of behaviour. But why she felt that was necessary, read the room, people. Have a look what's happened everywhere. And we can see, in the United States, and I don't know, but I assume it's going to happen elsewhere, people are being fired for the way that they celebrated his assassination. And then she goes and behaves this way. Well, let's just hope the Australian people fire her at the next election.
Yeah, let's hope that indeed. Adam, the point here is that Charlie Kirk engaged in respectful debate. He wouldn't have ever, mocked someone or made an off-colour joke about them after their death.
No, that is certainly true. But I can also inform you, ladies, that the word for P is another word for urine. So certainly in very poor taste, quite grotesque comments, very contemptible. And it's very sad that we have senators elected to the Senate like this. She should be judged by civil society, and she will be. It seems that she is already backtracking, as she should. But just a general point, we have to remember that one of the things that Charlie Kirk very much stood for was free speech, and even if it was horrible speech, even if it was in very bad taste, he was very much for it. He didn't support people being cancelled or charged criminally for what they say. So we just have to keep in mind at moments like these that, that people are going to disagree, people are going to be rude and awful, and in a civil society, we just have to live with it. But of course, that said, what the Senator said is very disgusting.
No, it is indeed. Now,
there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate. There is nothing more up, than to completely pretend that his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence for the last decade or so. These people are full of and it's important for us to call them out while we feel anger and sadness. Like, I have empathy for his kids and his wife.
Do you agree that we have a problem in the United States with politically motivated violence?
Absolutely.
And I very much agree. I think we can all agree that political violence is wrong, it's evil, regardless of which side it comes from, and that we can all adamantly and vehemently reject it, or we certainly should. But one of the things that we've noticed recently is that affinity and tolerance for political violence is not equally distributed on both sides of the aisle. In fact, right now, social media is filled with leftists who are cheering on the murder of an iconic conservative political figure, Charlie Kirk. And it's not just random people on Twitter doing this now. There's a YouGov poll released just a few days ago, which stated that 25% of those who identify as very liberal believe that political violence can sometimes be justified. That's far too many, is it not? It is.
One is far too many.
One is far too many. That's right. Only 3% of very conservatives said the same thing, and we can agree that 3% is far too many. But there's an astounding difference between 25% on the left accepting and tolerating political violence and 3% on the right. I would hope that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle would also recognize that there is a systemic problem on their side of the aisle with tolerance for violence against people with whom they politically disagree, that there is a cultural rot on their side of the aisle that needs to be addressed desperately. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
One of the more astounding aspects of this is that it's not just people. This comes from the very top, from their political leaders. Just a few days ago, a member of Congress of this body, Ilhan Omar, shared a video on her social media account about Charlie Kirk's murder, and I'll quote what it said. It said, "Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck." In other words, Charlie had it coming to him. The words that he said naturally led to his assassination. I mean, that is a reprehensible thing for a member of Congress to say, to suggest, to promote in any capacity. And there are people across this country who are losing their jobs for far less than this. And that, by the way, is a just response to acceptance and tolerance of political violence. It's amazing to me that the political left today, who were the originators and the cheerleaders of cancel culture, now have the backbone to attack conservatives for defending their assassinated friend. But there's a key difference here. Democrats want to silence conservatives for speaking obvious, self-evident ontological truths like that men aren't women and men can't get pregnant. That seems pretty basic. That seems like a basic truth that we should all be able to agree on. Republicans, by contrast, are recognizing that a constitutional republic depends on the free and open exchange of ideas.
And Ilhan Omar responding to Charlie Kirk's death. Listen.
Yeah, there is nothing more up, than to completely pretend that his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence for the last decade. These people are full of shit, and it's important for us to call them out.
I don't think a single person who has dedicated their entire career to preventing gun safety legislation from getting passed in this House has any right to blame anybody else but themselves for what is happening.
Lisa?
It's that kind of dehumanization that led to his assassination, to his murder. Sandra, it's hard to find the right words to say right now in this moment. Everything just feels inadequate. It feels like what you're saying is just not big enough for where we are right now as a country and a society. But there is a political dynamic to this, yes, obviously. But the spiritual one is so much bigger. And we all know that Charlie wasn't assassinated just for his political beliefs. He was assassinated for his faith. He was assassinated because he was a devout Christian, which was the basis for all of his beliefs. That is why he was assassinated. I also think that's why all of us, millions of people across the world right now, feel this tug on our hearts right now. Because while there's a political battle in front of us, there's a spiritual one that supersedes that. And we're seeing a wickedness and an evilness in this country from people who are dancing on the grave of a great man, a great father, a great husband, someone who just wanted to do good in this country. And I think that's why, even though his killer thought he was silencing Charlie Kirk, he's ignited a fire in the bellies of so many people across the world.
Well, Doug, here's a Democrat with a different take. Here's Senator John Fetterman. Listen.
We can't just be, well, Trump is always wrong, or that we're going to set the country on fire, or whatever. A lot of Americans happen to disagree with you. That does not mean that they are fascists or now they want to shred the Constitution.
Because as Mark Halperin also is warning Democrats, the future may be Turning Point USA. Listen to this take.
How much does Turning Point become a wing of the RNC? If they do and they run it well, that could be a private, party-affiliated powerhouse unlike anything we've ever seen in American politics. I'm not saying it will happen, but it could happen because of the grassroots.
Your response, Doug?
2 points. First, Senator Fetterman is exactly right. We need to air our differences, yes, make it clear where we have alternative views, but end the hate, the polarization, and the division. And look, I've debated Charlie Kirk. I knew him reasonably well. I knew him to be a caring and compassionate man. And what Mark Halperin is saying could well happen and galvanize Turning Point USA.
What purpose, gentlewoman from South Carolina, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows. House Resolution 713, censuring Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota and removing her from the Committee on Education and Workforce and the Committee on the Budget. Whereas Charlie Kirk was a lifelong advocate for freedom of speech, civil political discourse, and the political engagement of youth. Whereas Charlie Kirk was a man of deep faith, a husband, and a father to 2 young children. Whereas on September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk was assassinated on the campus of Utah Valley University while exercising his First Amendment right to freedom of speech. Whereas on September 11th, 2025, one day after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Representative Ilhan Omar gave an interview on Zateo's town hall with Mehdi Hassan in which she smeared Charlie Kirk and implied he was to blame for his own murder. Whereas on September 12th, 2025, 2 days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Representative Ilhan Omar reposted a video on X, formerly known as Twitter, which disparaged the character of Charlie Kirk and those mourning his death. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X states Charlie Kirk is dead, and before the body got cold, the far right propped his corpse up as a cudgel for their holy war. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states, don't be fooled. These people don't give a single shit about Charlie Kirk. They are just using his death to further their Christo-fascist agenda. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states Charlie Kirk was a reprehensible human being. He enacted his political agenda by preying on weak-minded people. He took complex socioeconomic issues and simplified them by pointing fingers at outgroups, demonizing those groups, and sicking his massive following on them. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states Charlie Kirk was a stochastic terrorist, an adamant transphobe. He denied the genocide happening in Palestine. He believed the subjugation of women, and in his last dying words, he was spewing racist dog whistles. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further states, Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck. Whereas the video Representative Ilhan Omar reposted on X further blames Charlie Kirk for his own murder. Whereas Clause 1 of Rule 13 of the Rules of the House of Representatives provides a member, delegate, resident commissioner, officer, or employee of the House shall behave at all times in a manner that shall reflect credibility on the House. Whereas Representative Ilhan Omar's actions in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk are reprehensible and affect the dignity and integrity of the proceedings of the House and do not reflect the credibility on the House. Now therefore be it resolved that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota be censured. Representative Ilhan Omar forthwith present herself in the well of the House of Representatives for the pronouncement of censure. Representative Ilhan Omar be censured with the public reading of this resolution by the Speaker, and Representative Ilhan Omar be and is hereby removed from the Committee on Education and Workforce and removed from the Committee on the Budget of the House.
But first, there's this. Americans are finding themselves fired and out of work for their social media posts celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. At least a dozen faculty and staff from schools facing swift termination, including 2 at a Tennessee university. One faculty member allegedly wrote, "You reap what you sow," while another wrote, "This is not a tragedy, it's a victory." Sick. Clemson University says 2 professors have been removed from their teaching duties pending an investigation. And officials in Texas say 100 teachers and staffers were terminated for similar comments. Joining me now is South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace,
Congresswoman, thanks very much for being here. This is absolutely outrageous. I know you're urging the Department of Education to cut off federal funding to any schools or faculty that appear to be spewing hate like this and celebrating this assassination. Tell us more.
Well, right. I mean, we should not allow these educators who are celebrating the political assassination of Charlie Kirk and conservatives around the country. They should not be anywhere near our kids or teaching them. The same thing goes for healthcare professionals, doctors, anesthesiologists, nurses. I don't want these people making life or death healthcare decisions for myself, my family, or any of you that are watching you, Maria, this morning. And in fact, late last night, we got tipped off about an alleged employee at a South Carolina college saying that violence is the only answer and saying that I would be the next political assassination. These people need to be publicly shamed. They need to be shamed out of a civil society, out of their jobs when they are around children or making healthcare decisions. Enough is enough. This is the mentality that got Charlie Kirk assassinated. It's why Donald Trump they attempted to kill him twice last year. It's why so many conservatives are getting death threats all day, all night right now, and we're done with it.
Yeah, but I want to know who is supporting this and funding this. I mean, you've got to follow the money. President Trump now wants to see racketeering charges against leftist groups who are agitators. Watch this.
I've asked Pam to look into that in terms of RICO, bringing RICO cases against the criminal RICO, because they should be put in jail. What they're doing to this country is really subversive.
I mean, the president said he's going to look at the Soros network. I know you plan to file a resolution stripping Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar of her committee assignments following her disparaging comments about Charlie Kirk. So let me kick it off, this whole look at this with that. Who is funding this radicalization?
Well, I agree with President Donald Trump. The first person we should look at is George Soros. We know that he has sent a lot of money, millions of dollars, funding organizations that want chaos, division, and violence. I mean, when there were the Black Lives Matter riots, if you remember, Maria, there were pallets of bricks that were sent to small towns all across the country to destroy these cities and these towns. So somebody is paying for this. And we know it's coming out of the Democrat the left-wing party in the United States. We know that they are participating in this, but somebody is funding it. And I agree with Trump to start with Soros. And I am filing a privileged motion this morning to censure Ilhan Omar for alleging that Charlie Kirk is a terrorist in her content, and all but blaming him for his assassination, but also strip her of her committee assignments. I believe in the First Amendment. You have the right to say whatever you want, but that has consequences. And she should be admonished, and she should be reprimanded here in Congress. This is the sort of thing that is putting conservatives' lives in danger. I carry my 6-hour P365 now everywhere I go because of the danger and the threats that we're currently facing.
Yeah, I mean,
in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder.
I mean, there's a whole group of Democrats who use the word fascist repeatedly during their campaigning, their political campaigning. And, you know, the suspect had the word fascist etched on his ammunition. So what does that tell you?
Well, you mean, look at Kamala Harris when she was running for president last year. She said live on air multiple times over that Donald Trump was a fascist. And this ideology, they've called us Nazis, they've called us Hitler, they've called us fascists, they've called us terrorists. This is why our lives are in danger. And how do you have unity with a group of people who want to murder you? And, you know, I talked to my pastor on Sunday. I'm struggling with this because these people need to be held accountable. They need to be fired from their jobs. They need to go to jail if they've committed a crime. And, you know, how do you handle that? And so that's the question we're all asking ourselves. And we want to be safe in our communities. But also, if this guy right here, this sounds like he was organized. I know that Kash Patel said that they were talking to many people on Discord. It was definitely premeditated. But this ideology, and he comes from this community because his boyfriend, I guess, is transgender or transitioning. But they come from this community that is advocating for violence. And I've had so many threats. And in fact, at my first Turning Point USA event earlier this year, there was a transgender person who tried to pick up a potted plant, a fern, and throw it at me. But this is a community that just because I say as a rape survivor, as a rape victim, I don't want a biological man in the shower next to me or the bathroom, they want to kill me because of my beliefs as a woman and as a rape survivor. So we're not dealing with sane people here, and they need to be dealt with boldly, strongly. And I support everything Trump is saying and wanting to do. That's why I'm filing this censorship and this motion to strip Ilhan Omar of her committee assignments. That's why I'm working to root out the teachers and healthcare workers in South Carolina who celebrate murder. I don't want them around our kids. Hard pass.
I've never seen the kind of hate that was so apparent during the last election season. I've never seen the kind of hate that was exhibited against Donald Trump and his supporters than what we've seen in the last 10 years.
Quite a bit. And Charlie would call me up. So the last time I spoke to him, he said, sir, I think it was Phoenix. Sir, could you get to Phoenix? This was like in a day. I said, Charlie, I'm the president of the United States. You're calling, asking me if I could speak tomorrow in Phoenix. You can't do that to me, Charlie. But usually I ended up going. He was great. He was a great guy, and he didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve this, believe me.
Ilhan Omar, after his assassination, called Charlie Kirk a reprehensible human being. Should she be stripped of her committee assignments?
I would say, I think she's a disgraceful person. You know, I think she's a disgraceful person, a loser. It's amazing the way people vote. I know it's people from her area, maybe of the world. I don't know. They got here and they vote her in. It's hard to believe, but I think she's a disgusting person.
And one more question, if I could.
And she was referring more broadly to a lot of people on the right that she says have now resulted in her having death threats and the need for around-the-clock security, which I know you've talked about. That's not something you can do for every member. It would cost billions of dollars. But what do you make of her characterization that he really wasn't about civil debate?
She clearly has no idea what she's talking about. She has not followed Charlie. She's playing into this characterization of him that the left has been advancing. There are people actually celebrating his murder online, and that tells you everything you need to know about that side. We've got to get cut through that. Look, member security is a serious matter. We're looking into all options to increase security measures so that they have plenty of coverage for their residential security and their personal security as well. And I think we'll be able to handle that. But there is this angst out there, and we got to turn the rhetoric down. That is exactly the opposite of what we should be doing, what you just saw in that video right there. And I hope all members of Congress will join us. Look, we've been very active in trying to carry on and really, I think, portray clearly what Charlie was about. And his record speaks for itself. He was a Christian, a committed believer. He understood what Scripture teaches, what you and I understand, Shannon, that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spiritual darkness. And Charlie understood. He put on, as it says there in Ephesians 6, the full armor of God to go out and advance truth and do it in love. And that's exactly what he did. That's what his legacy stands for. And everyone around this country who is mourning his death understands that in spite of what some of these voices are saying.